Welcome to the Alain Elkann interviews, an unprecedented window into the minds of some of the most well-known and respected figures of the last 25 years.
Welcome and hello. I'm David Hornsby, the managing editor of Alain Elkann Interviews. Alain is a very experienced interviewer who it is my pleasure to work with, and who has conversed with many diverse subjects over tens of years. Alain adores making interviews, as he says on the cover of the Assouline publication of a selection of a mere 78 of these. Making interviews has been like going to prolonged university, because each interview is like having a private lesson from an interesting person on a different subject. We hope you have as much fun listening to his interview with the novelist and playwright Hanif Kureishi as we have had making it.
You are publishing soon a new novel. What is it about?
It's in a slightly different genre from the stuff I've done before, because Isabella and I used to watch American noir movies from the 40s and 50s, and I came to really appreciate that genre. And so this is a novel that concerns an older man who is confined to a wheelchair. His younger Muslim wife.
An old man or an older man?
An older man, well, an old man is a man in his 80s confined to a wheelchair. And his younger Muslim wife. And her relationship with a con man, confidence trickster, who comes to stay with them in their flat. So it's a triangle. It's told from the point of view of the old man, who witnesses their relationship. He's a film director.
So it's tough, you say?
It's a noir, it's a tough, hard-boiled, but I also hope it's amusing and entertaining. It's quite short, and it's set in one flat, one apartment. And it's about an old man watching his wife fall in love with another man, who then tries to rob the old man of not only his wife, but of everything else. So it's, I hope it's good fun to read, it's good fun to write. And I've also been working on some TV
it's
projects.
Also tragic, no?
I hope so. I hope it's maximum fun, maximum tragedy.
Because see your wife falling in love with someone else is not exactly fun, you know?
You're right about that.
But he's afraid of dying.
I guess he is. And he's, as it were, fading, or disappearing from the world because of his age, his illness, and so on. As I say, it's a short book. It's a bit different for me.
It's good like a novella?
It's a novella. It's about 35,000 words, which is the most I can manage these days.
And then you were saying you're writing something else?
I've been writing something else. I don't write so much now. I'm writing something with one of my sons, my eldest son, Sachin, and I'm writing a TV series with him, which was very good fun to do for the BBC.
Your eldest son?
Yeah. He's a Jamali. He's 23. It's really fun to work with kids, to write with their kids. He was unemployed. He was desperate. He had to become a writer. He had no choice. Isabella has been a very bad influence on me. So yeah.
I write it?
You can write it if you want. These Italian women are very...
Isabella, my friend.
My girlfriend.
Your girlfriend.
I think she would be very annoyed if you only described her as my friend. We're a bit more than friend. She has been a very bad influence on me. And she encouraged me to spend the evenings watching noirs, American noirs, featuring Joan Crawford and Betty Davis, where possible. So I watched so many of these, I started to write one myself.
So you left your world in
what?
Pakistan, the Buddha in the suburbs world. You left your family or your family world.
I wouldn't say that entirely, no. One of the characters is a Muslim woman. It's about London. It's about looking. It's about impotence, somebody who's older, who can't participate in the world. It's about aging, being unable to work. It's a good story.
Tell me something, but the story you're writing with your son for the BBC, is it about what?
It's about a Syrian refugee. It's about a Syrian refugee who comes to London on a long journey to work as a driver for the son of a rock star. So it's a crossing over, really, of two worlds. That of the refugees and that of the, let's say, the rich upper bourgeoisie of Notting Hill.
You like that? mixing classes.
Well, you see both worlds from a different angle. You see the rich from the point of view of the poor, or the outsider, the Syrian. You see the Syrian from the point of view of the spoiled, upper middle class rich kid.
So how do you see things going on at the moment? You know, because you're also working, you're writing, you're thinking about politics, about many other subjects, and we have a lot to say about that. I mean, when you say I write less, is because you like less to be a fiction writer, and you have all the things in your mind, or not, or it is the contrary? I don't know.
Well, I think it's just to do with, I'm 60. When you get to 60, your life changes. The things you wanted to do when you were 20, the things you wanted to do even when you were 40, they're not the same. You don't have the same ambitions. When I was younger, what I wanted to do was publish a book, or have a movie, or go to the Oscars, or have a movie at Cannes, or whatever. Now I've done all that, it doesn't mean anything to me anymore. So your interests, if you're lucky, alter. And I guess I'm probably like you. I'm fascinated by what's going on in the world at the moment. So,
I mean, to publish a new book is not anymore a big thing in your life, or it is?
Not in the same way, no, it's not the same.
Just publish, happy to do it,
I like to publish.
trembling in front of critics, or about how many copies you will sell, or what people will say, much less.
Not at all, yeah, it doesn't.
Right, but do you think a lot about what is the role nowadays of a man who comes from humanities, an intellectual and a writer, in this very, let's say, different world we're living in? And I'm sorry to use, a recent example, but I mean, we just had elections in America who gave the result they gave. We had elections in England, and soon we'll have European elections. We have all that mess going on in Turkey. Fleets, the Russian fleets moving in the Mediterranean.
Actually, I saw one of your sons the other day in Turkey.
John.
I was in a hotel in Istanbul and ran into one of the Elkanns.
Which one?
I don't know which one.
What was he looking like?
Yeah.
Tall or blonde?
I honestly can't remember, but he was in Istanbul. So there you go. They get everywhere, the Elkanns. Yes, the world is very interesting and terrible at the moment. And this year, certainly because of the Brexit and obviously the American election, we've seen, as you know, you'll be aware, a big rise in so-called populism, or anger from the so-called disenfranchised. Yeah.
What did you think about the Brexit? Were you for, against? How did you feel?
I was very shocked, actually. I have to say that the popular vote went against the European Union. I was really shocked by that. I thought, I didn't think for a moment that the British people would vote to leave the EU. I thought it would be very disadvantageous to them for all sorts of reasons. But I was very shocked, and apparently now we're in the middle of a populist uprising.
I mean, the victory of Trump is huge. He won everything.
Well, many people, as you know, have been disenfranchised, particularly in the US, for a long time, and particularly since 2008, when they were perfectly aware that the financial class had been ripping them off for some time. And they're very angry about it. And so they have turned, as they do in terms of such political crises, to, let's say, a sort of charlatan or a popular figure who promises to repair their injuries. And it's a terrible thing to see and very sad, because I don't believe that either the Brexit or Donald Trump will repair the injuries of the disenfranchised and the excluded proletariat.
You see, there are now soon elections all over Europe. There will be French elections, Austrian elections.
The French will vote for Marine Le Pen, and they will leave the EU. And then the EU will implode, which will be very bad news for Italy, actually.
That's what you think?
Yeah.
And I think you know what the 5 stars are in Italy, the movement, which is sort of a populistic movement that is very strong. And also the Prime Minister in Italy is probably in trouble now. They will vote for a referendum. And
I'm sure the same thing will happen across Europe now in the EU.
So which kind of world will we have?
Well, we'll live in a world...
To be honest, we'll have a fascist world again.
Well, we'll have a very right-wing world, and we will also have a Europe in which Russia becomes very, very powerful. Certainly, as Putin is such a big pal, apparently, of Trump. So that if the EU implodes, and if NATO declines, I think we're going to be left in a very bipolar world of the United States and Russia. So I think the future doesn't look that good at the moment.
I think for intellectuals and writers, you think there is also a risk of losing freedom to write or to publish or things like that?
I'm not aware of anything like that in the UK, certainly. No, I'm not aware of it in any other European countries. We, what you call so-called intellectuals, have lived since the post-war period in a lovely bubble. I was born, probably like you, in a time of great fortune and liberal expansion. Grew up in the 60s and 70s.
Well, first of all, we never had wars.
We didn't have wars. We had, and certainly in Britain, we had a very good welfare state, great NHS, very good education system, not bad education system. I come from an immigrant family. I had free education. I went to university, and in fact, they paid me to go to university. It's much, much tougher now.
You're afraid this is going to end?
I think it's ended already. It's ended already, really.
In this city of London where we are today, it's been in the last years, sort of a big city of Europe, international cosmopolitan and blah, blah, blah. Is it going to remain like this, you think? Or?
Well, London is being destroyed by the wealthy, I mean, a city can be too poor, which means it can't do anything, or it can be too rich, which means that nobody interesting can afford to live there anymore. We have the possibility in London of foreigners buying property. So most of the property in most of the rich parts of London are owned by Chinese or Americans or Saudis or etc., etc. So it means that it's really, really difficult for young people to live in London now, to buy properties.
And so the city will change entirely?
The city just becomes a playground for rich people, and most of them don't even live here.
But all this may go away with Brexit.
I doubt it, but it may do. Not necessarily. I mean, the major investors in property in London at the moment are Chinese.
And you think this government will be capable to achieve the Brexit? Or
Theresa May has to achieve the Brexit because the previous three Conservative prime ministers were all destroyed by the right of their own party. Cameron was destroyed, John Major was destroyed, etc. We have a very, very active right in the Conservative Party that's very used to be called the Common Market or the EU, and they're very destructive. So if she doesn't cooperate, she'll be out.
And tell me something. How is do you being in London? Do you feel part of the literary world, of what's going on in the English language world?
Yeah, I mean, we all know each other because we've all been around in London for all of our lives. People in the movies, people in theatre, people in.
And how is your feel? You said that when one is 60 different, 40 different, 20, are you still in touch with the new people who write, who create? You think
not particularly.
A lively place?
It's a very lively place, London. It's a great, great global city. Like New York, it's like a sort of city-state. And still, at the moment, I would imagine it's still just about a great place to live in because there are young people here and students and foreigners and all that stuff that makes a city worth living in. I spend, like you, time in Rome because of Isabella, and you can see there's a sort of semi-dead city. It's full of tourists, but there isn't any vigor there anymore, and it's wonderful because it's derelict.
It's like being in a museum.
It's like being in London in the 70s. Nothing really works. There's graffiti everywhere. It's dirty. It's rather beautiful, and it's dereliction. But then you see a city like London that has a vigour to it. Because people want to come here and want to believe they can make art here, make movies here and stuff. And that is the engine of the city.
You talk about Muslim character, a woman in your book. We have had, now there's a sort of silence at the moment. That terrorism has been the number one thing in the news because of elections and so on and so forth. But still, last year, or until very few months ago, we had many episodes all over Europe and in America. What do you think about that? And then you talk about you write about a Syrian refugee.
Well, it would be very shocking had there not been, in a sense, terrorism in Europe, because there have been so many wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and so on. Parts of Pakistan are very, very rough. It would obviously make people furious in the Muslim world, the way they've been treated, certainly during the Iraq War and Afghanistan War. So it wouldn't be shocking that there would be outbreaks of a return of violence in the West. The Western people seem to think that they can prosecute wars in other places and carry on with their lives without there being any implications in terms of what they've done. And then that's a really stupid idea, which you can outsource your wars and have them only in Afghanistan or Pakistan or Iraq, Syria, Libya, and never notice anything on the streets of London. Terrorism is merely a response to a global political religious situation.
Links or family links with that world. You don't have a crystal ball, obviously, but what do you think is going to happen over there? In this large Muslim world.
Well, it's not getting better, and they don't have any good leaders, and they don't have a history of what we call democracy. And because there's so much chaos there, really the only thing that ever emerges out of chaos is really power, and usually right-wing power, sometimes left-wing power, as in China or whatever. So I wouldn't say it's looking good for those people now. The West hasn't helped by causing chaos in those places and destroying their universities, their infrastructure, their schools, their hospitals.
The monuments.
The whole thing. And then they get really upset and there's a response in the West.
So you don't think that religion has so much to do with it? Because the idea we have here, mainly that these people are lost people in the peripheries of life, and they are promised a better world after life, and that if they do something they will reach happiness and
it's a very crude view of what's happening in the global political situation, really. That these people are just crazy thinking they're going to go to heaven and so on. I mean, all that may or may not be a part of it, but I don't think it's...
But I mean, ultimately, what do you think? What you said during this conversation is that there is a lot of discontent all over the world, in America, in Europe, in the Middle East.
There's a discontent because partly because of, certainly in the West, because of hypercapitalism or neoliberalism, which we've seen since Thatcherism, which really has had a big impact on. If you go to, you spend a lot of time in the US. You go to Detroit and you see those places. Have you been to Detroit? It's unbelievable there. I mean, you and I from Europe, we go to Detroit and you look around, you see miles and miles and miles of desolation. You can't believe this is contemporary America.
There's desolation everywhere, in Middle America, in loneliness, sense of loneliness.
And the hyper-rich, which have sucked up much of the wealth. You can see that
having Trump president in the United States and Putin in Russia, I don't see the rich being very much punished, right?
But that's the mistake. What's so terrible for the poor?
The poor voted for these people because they think they are going
They're saviors, as you say.
But you see a similarity with what's happening today, obviously with different clothes, different technologies and things, with what happened in Europe in the 30s, the growing of dictators everywhere.
Well, Simon Sharma was saying that yesterday. You know Simon Sharma, the historian? He was saying that. He said that, of course, fascism began in Europe at the ballot box. And he said he considers Trump to be a fascist. I'm not sure about that. But I can see that people who are desperate, who believe that they have no future and no investment in the country, would turn to a popular leader who clearly makes promises which are fatuous. We can make America great again.
I was thinking to that. This is an incredible slogan, but this is a slogan that works.
It's just a slogan. It has no meaning.
But there are plenty of people in America who have flags in their house and guns and all that.
It's tragic and sad to see this. Because
do you think that, let's call it the peaceful way of life we more or less had in Europe in the last 20 years, let's say 30 years, is going to go to an end? I mean, by peaceful, I mean dialogue.
I think the rise of the right in France with Marine Le Pen, who I'm sure will become the next president of France, will be a big thing in Europe. I mean, she really is a fascist.
Do you think that France is going to get out of Europe?
I think Europe will implode, yeah. I think it'll be the end.
What's going to happen in Germany?
Yeah, there'll be the European Union will consist of the Germans, more or
less.
But
the Germans will become fascists again.
Though there's a very strong right in Germany as well now, right? These are very unstable and very dangerous times, but I have to say, Alain, that it's not looking good.
So at the end of the day, you are a father, you are a writer. How do you feel?
I think these are very interesting times. My kids, are probably like your kids, are really interested in politics, and they read all the papers and they follow everything, and they want to know what's happening with Trump. They're very, very actively involved.
Yes, but do you think that the world in which they will live will be a terrible world? Or?
It's a worse world than the world that we grew up in, I think.
Much worse.
I obviously can't speak for Italy at the time when you grew up in it, but Britain, and certainly London in the time that I've lived in London, was a very peaceful place on the whole, and a very good place to live, and very welcoming for young people, to work and places to...
And you have the feeling that a person like you, a writer, has a role in the society?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's absolutely the case that one of the things that we writers and artists have to do is to speak about the discourse. What we do as writers is think and talk and be interested in language. And we talk about the language which you just said. It's very interesting. But Donald Trump speaks in slogans. He doesn't say anything, but these sort of...
Mussolini used to speak in slogans.
Yeah.
Wars in Italy were saying many enemies, a lot of honor, or leaving dangerously. You know, they were written all over Italy, and there were slogans everywhere.
Yeah, make America great. So one of the things that people like you and I can do is to think about the language and the way the language is being deployed, the way it's being used, what it does, and how it misleads people. We work in words.
You see, I was thinking the other day that in France, for instance, when there was this famous case at the beginning of the last century, the Dreyfus case, a very important writer of the time, Émile Zola, he wrote the famous pamphlet J'accuse, you know, that was published in the newspaper L'Aurore and made a huge impact, right? Nowadays, I don't see anyone who, you know, who is the writer? I was thinking during the election myself, I'm not American, I can't say anything, and even if I say something, you know, I am a foreigner. But how come there are no real, you know, I mean, you had rock stars and things like that who said vote for Hillary, okay, because they are democratic by, but there's no one who wrote major, or had a major impact in the...
But writing doesn't occupy that place now anymore. The only person, the only equivalent of the Dreyfus case that I can think about is obviously the affair of the Satanic Verses in 1989, which was a much more important figure really than the Dreyfus affair. A really profound turning point in literary history, and the hinge, 1989, obviously long before 9/11, where we became aware of, let's say, Muslim fundamentalism. So I would say that was equally significant as a point in literary and political history, where there's the crossover that you just described, actually. 14th of February, the Fatwa. I think that was profoundly significant. Looking back, it seems even more significant.
Yeah, but there are no more, I mean, I don't know, I'm asking you.
The writers don't occupy that position anymore. They don't have that status. Why would anybody listen to Philip Roth more than they would listen to Bruce Springsteen? Writers don't have that kind of authority, because we live in a world where other media, the most important cultural form of our life in the post-war period, has not been the cinema. It's not been television. It's not been, certainly not the novel or the theatre, but pop music, rock and roll. The novel is a very minor form. It's of no interest to most of the public.
So you feel that we are a race in extinction, we're panda bears, or there's a little public of, you know, readers, and like everywhere, but the figure of in some other countries, writers are very important. In Russia, for instance, we talk about Russia, some poets and writers in the Russian world.
Certainly not in the UK. Not contemporary figures, no. Certainly not in the US. Bruce Springsteen is much more important than Philip Roth.
And do they say something through music?
I think someone like Springsteen, certainly Bob Dylan, winning the Nobel Prize.
What do you think about that?
I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was a really great
Why?
book.
Because you think he is a poet?
Because I think he's probably the most significant cultural figure in our lifetime. Yeah.
Why?
I mean, he's been around ever since I was a kid, since 64, 65. Because, as I say, pop music was the cultural form of my life. The way in which we really communicated, the way we talked about freedom, we talked about sexuality, we talked about class. Obviously, in the 60s, pop musicians were considered to be outsiders. Now, obviously pop is essential, is at the centre, but it carried all the values.
We're there, we have no David Bowies, we have no Rolling Stones, we don't have Beatles, we don't have Pink Floyds anymore. We don't have that.
No, it's not like
These are legends, like the pop art, like the Warhols, or,
Pop
now there's a lot of money. There are artists, of course, and auctions and things. And
it's been domesticated. There is no outside to capitalism now, you might say. Capitalism has domesticates all rebels, all rebellion, as we know, as we've seen. Capitalism can swallow everything.
Yeah, but we don't have symbols. The other day I was thinking people like Chaplin, who were able to make The Great Dictator, this movie, just before the war. There were artists like Picasso who painted Guernica, after. There are no symbols like this that we see, don't you?
Well, that's because capitalism swallows everything.
And would you like to do something? Sometimes you feel when you're in a bathtub or under the shower, I should really do something.
Well, I do. I do my work. That's all we can do. That's quite a lot. We carry on being the artists that we have to be.
And when you talk in public, you feel that people listen to you, that they ask you questions?
Well, there is a big wave of dissent, too, against what you call populism in the United States and in Britain, France. That's why we would say that those communities were divided, because the background that I come from, which is anti-fascist, feminist, anti-racist, left of centre, it's still a very strong thing in the UK and in the US, which is why we would say these communities were so divided. There was the populism of the right, but there was also a very strong...
That's what's happening today in Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York. There are sort of riots. People are rebelling against this.
Yeah, and they're going to have to live under Trump, and we're going to have to live under Brexit, under Europe, in which there's Marine Le Pen and Theresa May and Nigel Farage and all these horrific, weird people who we were thought were fringe weirdos. It's a nightmare, all the people that we...
How is it possible, the political class, because after all to be a politician is a work, how we possibly didn't understand what was going on?
Mostly because of greed, and I don't think they really saw what an impact the collapse of financial economy in 2008 would have, and how much it would make people hate the political system and the financiers and what they call the establishment, and that they were ripped off, and that they got poorer and poorer, and indeed have got poorer since 2008. We had a so-called austerity, which meant that the poor of Britain had to pay for the collapse of the banks. And I think it really pissed people off. It pissed me off, I can see why. And now there's been a populist revolt of the right.
So ultimately you're not very happy at the moment, if we may say.
I'm a very cheerful person. I have a very cheerful nature, as my girlfriend Isabella would confirm.
Yeah, this is your private life. You have a happy private life. Your children, your girlfriend, love.
I believe in the possibility of resistance. I think there will be resistance. Absolutely. And I think we made, until recently, big progress in terms of race. For instance, the acceptance of multiculturalism in Europe, the possibilities for women, certainly in my lifetime. In the 1950s, most women were housewives. The position of women in the West has totally changed. Multiculturalism has risen. We've had gay marriage. Socially, we've really liberalized ourselves.
And been a lot of technological changes too, right?
Yeah.
You still write longhand or you write with a computer? How is your life? How do you read books or you read on Kindle?
Both. But I get up in the morning and I like to write by hand. It's very beautiful. It's lovely to write by hand. Yeah. With a good pen, it's lovely.
You write on a book or on a...
Yeah, with a Monte Cristo.
How many hours you write?
Less and less. But I do something every day. I don't have the same.
You write a diary too?
Keep a journal. Yeah. Keep my notes on you on that.
You keep a journal every day?
I gave my journals to the library, to the British Library.
Will they be published in your lifetime?
I hope not. Certainly didn't write. I didn't write them to be published. They're accounts of friends, meetings, dinners, conversations.
So at the end of the day, when you said that you changed, right? Did you change only because you're less ambitious or because you obtained more or less what you wanted? or are you also changing your way of thinking?
All of those things. I mean, when I was 18, when I was between the age of 14 and 18, I was a delinquent teenager, always in trouble, breaking the law, taking drugs, dropping out of school. And then I became a successful writer. And I wrote movies and I made films and I supported my family. It's kind of worked out. So now I can do what I like. I hang around with my girlfriend and I look out of the window at the world.
Did you still follow cricket and go to pubs, or...?
The pubs are gone, Alain. It's gone. That part of London where you could spend the afternoons dragging around the pubs from pub to pub with your friends, drinking. Most of those pubs have now gone. Or they become restaurants, whatever.
Right.
That kind of culture that we lived in the 70s is really gone.
And if you had to say, I read an interesting book in the last year or two, what did you read? Is there any book that you felt, it's really interesting?
That's a good question. Well, I read a lot of the Norwegian writer Norsgaard. Do you know him?
Yeah, I heard about him. I didn't read him.
I read 3 of his books, which I thought were really profound, really good. I thought he was a great writer. And I didn't read much fiction now, because I'm too busy watching television.
What do you read?
I don't read anything much now. I'm busy watching television.
You don't read newspapers?
I read the papers.
You have a favorite paper?
Well, I read all the papers because you can read them on your iPad in 20 minutes. You know, you don't have to sit there turning all the pages like you did in the old days. So I read all the papers. But I'm a big admirer of Norsgaard. He's a wonderful writer, very moving writer, with a formidable intelligence. So I wouldn't say that...
In the world of cinema, because you are across both, no? I mean, you are a writer, but you have a lot to do with
I think
cinema.
it's a very, very exciting time in television. And all the directors, Soderbergh, Scorsese, your pal Sorrentino, they're all working in TV now.
Right, no, he just did a film.
He did The Pope, which I'm going to watch next week. And it's fabulous
You
television.
think that these series that we have seen in England, in America, they are the novels of today? I mean, when Tolstoy or Dickens used to write in the papers and buy...
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think they're really good. And I think the longer form. I mean, why would a movie have to be 90 minutes? You know, well, it was 90 minutes because you went to the cinema and saw a film and went home. Or my parents used to go see 2 films.
Yeah, but your parents used to go to the cinema, smoke cigarettes in the cinema, have popcorn.
Now it's much
a
better.
social thing to go to the cinema. Right? Nowadays, people watch movies at home. It's different.
It's much more social now. If Isabella and I go to dinner with friends, all they talk about is Transparent, Killing, Sopranos, The Wire, you know, box sets.
As once we used to talk about books or films.
Movies more than books. People don't really talk about books because people don't read books at the same time, which people would tend to watch movies or box sets at the same time.
Do you think that the quality of these series, dialogues, the acting, is good?
Very high indeed, really high. There's a new series in the US which is on Amazon called Transparent. It's really, really good, really interesting, very witty, very well done.
What is it about?
It's about a family, a Jewish family in Los Angeles. That's all. It's a man, an older man, has 3 kids and their lives.
So after all, storytelling is always about families.
It's like a 19th century novel. There's the family, there's the dad, there's the mum, there's the kid. Or it could be the godfather, and then it goes here, then it goes there. You know, it's the same thing. You can just start with a family.
Jealousy.
Aging, sexuality. It's the central form of television at the moment.
So nowadays this is the thing. You enjoy doing it.
I'd like my kids to work in television. It's a beautiful
How
form.
many kids you have?
I've got 3.
They all work in television?
2 of them are working TV now.
As writers.
Yeah, and the 3rd one is...
It must be difficult to be the son of a famous writer.
It's difficult, but on the other hand, their mother is also a film producer, television producer. So they come from that background. They spend their lives with people in the movies and TV. You know, it's natural for them to work in that world. It's difficult to be the son of a writer, but I was also the son of a writer.
Who never published.
Yeah.
Your book is a beautiful book. And what was the title?
About my dad, My Ear at His Heart.
It's a beautiful book. And this is a classical theme, no? To write about your father. Each one of us, at a certain point, we has the need to write either about mother or father, and then family, because these are the stories we know well.
And my students, the same, when I teach creative writing.
You think one can learn writing?
I learned a lot from my father about writing, by having conversations with him about storytelling. I'm sure you're the same.
What is the secret for you of a good writing, of a good book?
I would say the voice.
The voice.
The voice of the author. When you read a novel by Norsgaard, or you read a novel by Salinger, or you read a novel by Philip Roth, the first thing you notice...
Another one who wrote about his father.
What you notice is the voice.
The voice.
The tone, the way that the writer addresses you.
You like better to write in the first person and the third person?
It depends on the material, I would say. I wouldn't comment on that. It depends on the material. The first person is very powerful, but of course you can only go there and there and there. You can't go over there. I wouldn't say I prefer one or the other, really. It depends on the point of view that you're writing from.
This book is a new book. What is the title?
It's called The Nothing.
The Nothing.
Yeah.
And the characters are on the third person.
It's written from the first person.
The old man is
The old man is watching various corners in the room, he's moving around, he has mirrors, he has cameras. He sees this limited point of view. We look through his camera, you might say.
So that's all very interesting. So, thank you very much for
this
conversation.
Thank you.
Alain Elkann interviews.